My name is Paula Canellis and I'm from I Heart This Jewelry. And today I'm going to show you how to work with the double layer adjustable knot on the I Heart This charm adjustable leather bracelets. I'm going to show you how to undo these two slip knots and how to add a new charm on. So you might want to have two charms, and how to put on and take off the bracelet. It's not an exact science, but I'll show you the way that I usually do mine. So I'll start with taking the bracelet, and this one is tied with a double loop adjustable knot. Now if it's really tight, I might need a clean pair of pliers to pull that knot apart, but if it's not too tight, I can probably do it by hand. So I'm going to give that a shot first. You want to be sort of gentle with the leather because you don't want to mar it since you'll be reusing it. There's one. Now I'll do the other side. And there's the other side. So I just want to point out that this loop is what I call the stationary loop, and this is the loop that you make with your first pass of the leather ribbon through the rings on the back of your slide charm. And this is really what determines the size of your bracelet. So I'll be referring to this as the stationary loop, just listen for that. So now I'm going to pull out one end and then the other. In the event that your leather ribbon is too long, let's say you've tried the bracelet on and you know that it's too large, what you can do is you can measure the size that you need by wrapping the ribbon around your wrist and sort of figuring out what width you would like it to be once it's on. I might want mine about here, not too tight, not too loose. And so if you take that measurement, I'd say it's about 7 inches. You want to double that. You need at least that much to wrap around your wrist those 2 times. So that would be 14 inches. And then you want a little extra beyond that because each knot will take about this much leather once you actually knot it up with the double loops. So I generally start with a 15-inch piece because the average wrist bracelet is made at 7.5 inches. So I'm going to start with that. This one is 12, 15.5. So this leather ribbon has a burnished side or a smooth side, and if I turn it over, this side is more of a suede. And I want the bracelet when it's on to have that burnished or smooth side facing towards me. So I'm going to start with that side facing away from me, and the charm I will have facing away from me, and then I will thread through the leather ribbon into the rings on the back of the slide charm, making sure that the leather ribbon is facing the way I want it to. Pay attention to which way it reads. Make sure that the next charm also reads the same way. And then attach that one in the same fashion. Thread it through the rings. So that's the first pass. And if this was the complete length of my leather ribbon, and this is center, I'm going to put the slide charms a little bit left to center there. And I'm going to take this end, the longer end, make sure there's no kinks or twists in it. I'm going to bring it around and then thread it through once again. So this will be our second pass through those rings. Now, the ribbon might be a little snug going through those rings, and what I do is I take a clean pair of pliers and I gently so that I don't scratch the metal and so that I don't break the rings. I thread it through that way. And then again. And now through the second charm. These rings are bigger, so I don't even need the plier. Okay, so here we're back at the stationary loop, and you want to make the stationary loop about the size that you'll need it on your wrist. And then the extra lengths on the sides should be about equal, like so. Stationary loop and the extra ends. So now I'm going to just verify that there are no kinks in my first leather ribbon pass, and then in the second I'm going to make sure that it's nice and straight and smooth. I'm going to pinch these two together at this point, leaving myself about a 2-inch tail here, and then I'm going to grab, pinching here and not letting go, and I'm taking this end with my pinky to kind of give it some tautness, and then I'm going to take this little tail and I'm going to wrap it away from me 3 times. Again, pinky here to open it up, pinching at this point, and then the tail here, wrapping it away from me 3 times. So here's 1, 2, 3. Now these aren't very tight wraps. I will need those loops a little loose so that I can put my pliers through those loops and then grab that little tail to make an actual complete knot. So I'm grabbing my pliers, I'm putting them through those loops, I'm grabbing that tail there and pulling the loop over, or pulling the tail through. Oops. This may happen to you, so I'll leave this in the video. Pinch them together, make it taut by holding it with your pinky, wrap away from myself 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Pliers through the top loops. Come on. Grab that tail and pull through. And before you tighten it too much, you just want to manipulate the leather straps so that they're nice and flat and they look tidy. And then finally pull. So if you've done it correctly, it should look nice and flat here. You should have 2 loops in your knot, a small little tail, and we're back again at the stationary loop. And if I hold the stationary loop and I pinch the knot that I made, not too tight, but get a good grip on it, and pull along the length of the stationary loop, you see that my slip knot's working. If I, again, grab the stationary loop down here and slide the knot along that length, I've got my slip knot working. So now we'll switch to the other side. So I'll just switch that over and pinch here, give myself a little tail here. Create tautness by holding the bracelet open, pinching here and holding here with my pinky, and then wrapping this away from me, this tail away from me 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. Pinch it down here to hold it. Take my pliers and go through those loops, and then grab that tail and pull through. Before I pull it too tight, make sure that looks the way that I want it to, and then tighten. And again, stationary loop there in the middle between the two knots, grabbing the knot and sliding along the length. My slip knot is working correctly. Grab the stationary loop here, pull along the knot, my stationary loop's working. So here is your knotted bracelet. So now I'll show you how to put that on. So first you want to grab the stationary loop in between those knots, and you want to pull each knot towards the charms, and that's to loosen it. Once you do that, you can slide on the excess and then place it over your wrist. Oops. Get those facing me correctly. There we go. Now there's a couple different ways that you can get these slip knots to work, especially if you're doing this on your own. I guess the easiest way would be to have someone else put it on for you, but that's not always convenient. So this is how I do mine. I find the stationary loop here on the other side of the knot. And I believe this is the one that I'm pushing up against my wrist is the stationary loop, and that this top one is the knot. Let me just test that quickly. And I can test it by seeing where I put the tension, if the knot moves. Okay, so this is the stationary loop up here. This is the same as this, and then this is the loop that contains the knot. So I'm going to press this down to give it some tension, and then I'm going to take that knot and I'm going to slide it along the length. So now I have this slack here. I'm going to twist it just a tad. And I'm going to pull that slack out from behind the charms. Okay. And then I'm going to pull the knot along the length. And then work on the other side again. Grabbing the stationary loop, wrong string, this one, and pushing the knot I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but sort of pulling and pushing at the same time gives me the most leverage. Pulling out the slack and then closing it up. So that is about right. Maybe tighten it just a tad. Pulling on the stationary loop, pushing the knot towards the center. Okay. Get those nice and even. Make sure my leather is facing the right way. And there we are. And there is your adjustable leather bracelet. Your knots meet in the middle. Now if this has been cut to the right length, you don't need to redo the knots to make them tighter or looser, then you can just look to the knots and see if the tails are too long. I don't mind the length of these. If you wanted to even this up, you could cut that one just a little bit shorter, but I think they're fine. And that's it. I'm going to remove it just to give another example. I'm going to press my wrist against this table to give myself some leverage, and I'm going to slide that slip knot towards the charms and then pull up the slack. And there you go. Thanks.